The Debt Collector. Chapter 1, Breathing Again. Nathan Blackwood was declared KIA in Kandahar province, but the Department of Defense got it wrong. The 37-year-old Delta Force operator survived the mortar strike that should have vaporized his entire squad. Instead, it hurled him through hell's doorway and deposited him in a 16-week vegetative state. His wife Allison, a sleek, auburn-haired socialite from Chicago with the ambition of a Wall Street shark and the loyalty of a carnival barker, greeted this miraculous survival with perfectly rehearsed devastation masking profound inconvenience. While Nathan lay unresponsive at Walter Reed Military Hospital, she systematically declared him brain-dead, liquidated their assets, and vanished with smooth-talking investment banker Calvin Reeves. Fate, however, had drafted a different contract for Nathan, embodied in the 31-year-old physical therapist Sarah Winters, whose relentless determination gradually pulled him back from oblivion. And with consciousness came a thirst for retribution that would make even the most hardened battlefield executioner step back in admiration. The initial sensation that penetrated Nathan's darkness was scent, the unmistakable hospital cocktail of disinfectant, medication, and accumulated human suffering. That institutional perfume permeated every military medical facility from dusty field stations in Afghanistan to gleaming rehabilitation wings stateside. But another aroma intruded on the clinical bouquet, something unexpected: lavender. Light assaulted his retinas when he finally managed to crack open his eyelids, piercing his brain like high-caliber rounds. Christ almighty, just like that day. The blinding flash, the earth-shaking boom, then the void. "Steady there," came a woman's voice from his left. "Take it slow, Lieutenant Colonel Blackwood. You've been away for quite a while." Through the haze of brightness, a figure gradually materialized. A young woman in navy scrubs was leaning toward him, partially blocking the harsh fluorescent glare. Auburn hair pulled back in a practical bun framed a face with intent green eyes that studied him with cautious expectation. She held a small bundle of lavender stems, the source of that unexpected fragrance. "I'm Sarah Winters, your physical therapist. You're at Walter Reed Medical Center in Washington." Memory returned in violent fragments like battlefield intelligence delivered under heavy fire. The forward operating base on the outskirts of Kandahar, intelligence on high-value targets, the night operation, command bunker, the whistling overhead, someone shouting "incoming," then darkness. "How long?" The words scraped out like rusted metal. 16 weeks and 5 days, Sarah replied, placing the lavender stems in a simple glass vase on his bedside table. "I bring fresh ones each Wednesday. They say familiar smells can help guide someone back." 16 weeks, Jesus Christ. He attempted to flex his fingers, they responded sluggishly. Then his toes, they moved barely. At least his spinal cord had survived intact. "Allison," he started, noticing something shift in Sarah's expression. Wariness, anger. "My wife." "I'm sorry." She sat carefully at the edge of his bed, her small, strong hands resting near his. "There are some difficult things I need to tell you, and they won't be easy to hear." Over the next 15 minutes, Nathan listened as she recounted the chronicle of betrayal, each word striking like fragmentation rounds. Allison had arrived at Walter Reed 48 hours after the attack, the dutiful, grief-stricken wife of a decorated soldier, a flawless performance deserving of an Oscar. She'd wept appropriately, consulted with doctors, held his hand for the photographers from their hometown paper. And then, by the second week, her visits became less frequent. Sarah's voice grew distant. She claimed it was too difficult emotionally. After a month, her attorney delivered medical assessments declaring your condition permanent and irreversible. She secured power of attorney. After that, what happened? He already knew the answer but needed to hear it spoken. "She took everything. Sold your lake house in Michigan. Emptied your retirement accounts and investments. Even your grandfather's military medals disappeared from your safe deposit box. I checked with an old friend at the FBI. She and this banker, Calvin Reeves, relocated to some exclusive development in Scottsdale. Calvin Goddamn Reeves. Memory obligingly delivered an image, polished bastard in an Italian suit reviewing their financial portfolio. These investments will secure your future, Colonel. Perfect retirement strategy for a military man. The snake had probably been sleeping with Allison even then. Another flash of memory, their final night together before deployment. Allison wearing his army t-shirt, the mingled scents of red wine and her perfume. Come back safe, soldier. I'll be counting the days. Lying witch, deceitful harpy, traitorous bitch. The cardiac monitor accelerated its rhythm. Sarah leaned forward with concern. Nathan, you need to remain calm. Your system is still. I'm fine, he was, too more clear-headed than he'd been in years. Rage clears mental fog better than any stimulant. Tell me the rest. You mentioned speaking to me during rehabilitation sessions. Sarah nodded, the corners of her eyes creasing, evidence of compassion forged through extended professional dedication. Every session, read you military history news reports, played your favorite music. The medical team insisted it was futile, but, she shrugged. I noticed your blood pressure change when I mentioned the Chicago Bears, your breathing pattern shifting when I played Bruce Springsteen. You were fighting to return. Why? The question escaped unbidden. Why continue when everyone else abandoned the mission? She looked toward the window thoughtfully. Early spring sunshine sliced through the blinds, creating tactical patterns on the opposite wall. My father was an army ranger, died at Mogadishu trying to extract wounded men under heavy fire. I was raised understanding that warriors like you operate differently. You don't surrender, and those of us entrusted with your recovery have no right to abandon that mission while you're still engaging the enemy. Nathan studied her, feeling something warm kindling beneath the glacial surface of his rage. For 16 weeks, this woman had been his sole connection to the world, the only person who recognized he was still fighting. Sarah. Yes. Help me sit up. I need to plan our next move, and I think I'm going to need your assistance, your particular skills. She helped position him against the pillows, and his gaze fell upon the wall calendar. 16 weeks and 5 days, long enough to lose everything he'd built, and long enough to begin plotting its recovery with interest. Somewhere in a luxury desert development, his wife and her paramour were depleting his life's earnings, planning their affluent future, mocking poor old Nate who would forever remain a vegetable. But they'd miscalculated badly. His team hadn't christened him the accountant because he enjoyed spreadsheets. It was because he always, eventually, collected every debt owed. And now he'd returned from darkness with a substantial balance to recover. Enjoy yourselves while you can, you parasites. Soon you'll understand what it truly means to pay your debts in full. Chapter 2, Reclamation. They claim hatred provides motivation. Complete garbage. Nathan Blackwood understood reality better than most. Hatred alone won't raise you from a hospital bed when your muscles have deteriorated to useless tissue, and each movement produces excruciating pain throughout your nervous system. Hatred can't resurrect atrophied limbs. No, that demands something more elemental. Calculated purpose, enhanced by obstinate determination, and supported by a pair of confident hands prepared to support you when your body fails. 2 more steps, Sarah's voice was quiet but commanding. Your Delta Force aren't you. Was Delta Force, Nathan grunted through clenched teeth, gripping the parallel bars in the therapy room until his knuckles whitened. Perspiration saturated his shirt. And I'm keenly aware, God admit, that failure isn't an option. Just like that hellish extraction from Helmand Province, carrying Wilson's bleeding body through a kilometer of hostile territory. One step, another, maintain forward momentum. His left leg betrayed him, the knee simply collapsed, and he began toppling sideways. Sarah materialized instantly, deceptively powerful despite her modest stature. Her arms secured his torso, preventing the fall. "I've got you," she murmured. "Always will." She carried the scent of lavender and something unexpected, perhaps wood smoke. Her grandfather had been a forest ranger in Montana, she'd mentioned, and she still used the handmade soap he'd taught her to make. For cleansing more than just the skin, she'd explained. Nathan considered that perhaps he needed cleansing of many kinds now. "You know what frustrates me most?" He gradually straightened, reestablishing his grip on the support bars. "I can't even confront that bastard Reeves until I can stand without assistance." Sarah's expression shifted to that particular half-smile that appeared whenever she conceived a tactical approach. "Perhaps that's providential. I have a contact at the Financial Crimes Division, Marcus Brennan. He might be persuaded to initiate some inquiries about our happy couple." Federal agent, senior investigator, worked alongside my uncle at Treasury before specializing in private sector fraud. He's already uncovered some provocative information. Nathan raised an eyebrow questioningly. "Such as?" "Let's continue this conversation in your room. These walls have exceptional acoustics." The return journey required triple the time, but he completed it independently, relying only on a walker. A minor triumph. Negative, merely preliminary reconnaissance before the actual campaign. In his room, Sarah retrieved a tablet from her bag, navigated through several files. "Here's our intelligence. They're in Arizona, Scottsdale. Reeves purchased a desert estate for an extravagant sum. Care to estimate whose funds financed it?" "Mind." "Precisely. But that merely scratches the surface. Want to know what Marcus discovered about your financial advisor? He's not merely an investment banker. He operates a sophisticated scheme, identifies military officers with substantial assets, pursues their spouses while they're deployed, then systematically drains their finances. 4 confirmed cases in the past 5 years. No victims have pursued charges, too humiliated to acknowledge they were comprehensively deceived." Nathan's fists clenched involuntarily. So Allison was simply another acquisition target, the perfect symmetry. Marcus reports they've established themselves quite comfortably. Purchased a Range Rover, memberships at Scottsdale National Golf Club, regular dinner reservations at establishments where the menu lacks prices. Living extravagantly on your accumulated service pay and investments. Their timeline just got significantly shortened. Sarah perched on the edge of the bed, her green eyes intensely focused. "You've developed a strategy." "Forming one, but initially I need complete physical readiness, operational fitness." She nodded. "Then we commence with fundamentals. Tomorrow we intensify rehabilitation protocols. There's a specialized training facility here." There it was. Something flickered across her expression, that silent understanding that develops between individuals contemplating the same questionable endeavor. She was committed to assisting, prepared to execute the complete operation. "Sarah, what's your actual motivation here? The unredacted truth, why?" She remained silent momentarily, watching cherry blossoms drift past the window. Washington's spring painted the landscape in nature's watercolors. "You know what my father wrote in his final letter from Somalia? There exist 2 classes of people, those who exploit weakness and those who defend against exploitation. But occasionally, son, to properly defend others, you must become the aggressor against those who prey upon the vulnerable. I chose a career in rehabilitation medicine, but perhaps it's time to honor the second component of my father's philosophy." She turned toward him, and illuminated by the afternoon sun, her eyes appeared almost luminous. The eyes of a tactician, Nathan thought, the eyes of a woman who perceives vulnerabilities. "Furthermore," she added with subtle inflection, "I happen to possess extraordinary theatrical abilities. Community theater throughout college. Seriously considered professional performance before medical school. An advantageous capability as circumstances evolve." Nathan eased backward against the pillows, feeling exhaustion descending like a tactical blackout. But it was productive fatigue, the kind that follows essential preparation, after executing initial mission parameters. "Tomorrow," he said, "tomorrow we commence proper operational planning, just need to formulate approach vectors." "Delegate that responsibility to me," Sarah stood, adjusting his pillows with professional precision. "I've conceptualized several options, but first, recovery period. Rebuild your operational capacity." She moved toward the door but paused at the threshold. "And Nathan, forgive potential overreach, but you comprehend this mission will transform us both." He nodded. Naturally, he understood. Retribution resembles radioactive material. It permanently alters everything it contacts. But sometimes those alterations represent improvements. Like how a grievous wound becomes a battle scar. How treachery transforms into justice. How a solitary warrior and a determined healer might become something more significant than circumstantial allies in a campaign of righteous accountability. Chapter 3: Reconnaissance. 8 weeks of intensive rehabilitation accomplished what specialists had deemed improbable. Nathan Blackwood regained full mobility. Every session, every grueling hour, Sarah remained his steadfast ally, supporting, motivating, believing in his recovery when his own resolve wavered. During this period, something beyond practitioner-patient appreciation had developed between them. Something authentic and consequential, fundamentally different from anything he'd experienced with Allison. Their strategic approach evolved gradually, initially through evening tactical discussions, analyzing betrayal, justice, and methodologies to make two parasitic traitors answer for their actions. Then Sarah shared accounts of her grandfather's wilderness survival techniques, including his uncanny ability to read animal behavior patterns, and the operational blueprint crystallized. Scottsdale, desert playground for America's wealthy elite. Nathan surveyed the landscape from the balcony of the Sonoran resort, observing the golf course stretching below. Somewhere amid those privileged patrons, his former wife was squandering his military pension with her conspirator, but their days of prosperity were rapidly concluding. Target acquisition complete, Sarah appeared silently, like a Spec Ops infiltrator. Wearing earth-toned hiking attire with her hair concealed beneath a wide-brimmed hat, she was virtually unrecognizable. They've established residence at Desert Palms Estates, gated community overlooking Camelback Mountain. Predictable. Absolutely. Know what property values average there. Prefer not to contemplate it. He rotated his left shoulder, still experiencing mild discomfort after the cross-country flight. What's their routine? Dinner tonight at Sovereign Club. Then evening entertainment. They've reserved a private cabana at the resort spa. Tomorrow, they're scheduled for desert tour and shopping expeditions. Nathan nodded. Where do we initiate? Sarah leaned against the railing, and that familiar expression emerged, harbinger of precision-engineered psychological operations. Remember our discussion about Desert Palm's electrical infrastructure, the outdated transformer station, and my acquaintance in Arizona Power's maintenance division. Imagine their discomfort, experiencing extended power outages during peak temperature periods, then discovering their expensive wine collection spoiled from refrigeration failures. He permitted himself a tactical smile. And their evening entertainment. That promises enhanced results. I've coordinated with spa services. Unfortunate chemical imbalance in their private jacuzzi. Nothing hazardous, merely severely uncomfortable. She withdrew from her backpack a topographical map, wildlife identification handbook, and desert survival guide. Now observe. Her vocal characteristics transformed, adopting the measured cadence and authoritative tone of an experienced park ranger. The Sonoran ecosystem contains more venomous species than any comparable North American desert, Awareness of your surroundings becomes absolutely critical. Remarkable transformation. The woman before him had completely vanished, replaced by a weathered outdoor guide with penetrating eyes that missed nothing. A genuine desert survival expert who'd spent decades navigating this hostile terrain. Your performance is exceptional. Grandfather's influence, she reverted to her natural voice, smiling, taught me the essential requirement for wilderness survival is understanding your environment intimately. What threatens you? What sustains you? And our targets exist in an environment they fundamentally misunderstand. Nathan retrieved a compact equipment case with military markings from his duffel bag. Then perhaps it's time to introduce some environmental hazards into their artificial ecosystem. The evening brought oppressive desert heat. A monsoon weather pattern approached from the southwest, but the resort remained populated with guests. Nathan maintained surveillance from the covered patio as Allison exited the spa facility. Based on her rigid posture and compressed expression, events had unfolded suboptimally. Hardly surprising, discovering their exclusive evening ruined by inexplicable chemical irritations that left expensive swimwear permanently discolored, followed by reservation complications at the resort's premier restaurant. Sarah waited at her designated position, a composed figure in ranger attire, displaying educational materials about desert wildlife to interested tourists. Had Nathan not been briefed, he would never have detected her operational disguise. Fascinating lecture about Sonoran wildlife safety, her authoritative, educational tone carried across the courtyard. Desert scorpions have adapted remarkably to this harsh environment. Their venom affects the nervous system in particularly distressing ways. Allison attempted to navigate around the gathering crowd, but Sarah smoothly intercepted her. "Ma'am, you'll want this informational brochure. We've had reported scorpion infiltrations in several local properties, including Desert Palms Estates. I don't need. Recent construction has disturbed established nests, sending these creatures seeking new habitats, often in residential air conditioning systems and bedroom closets. The Arizona bark scorpion's venom causes intense pain, muscle spasms, and sometimes respiratory complications. Here's my card with the emergency response number." Allison reluctantly accepted the materials, visibly unsettled. "Are these infestations common?" "Only in certain properties, particularly those with southwestern exposure and extensive glass installations. Desert Palms has reported several significant incidents. Your home matches that profile precisely, correct? The Richardson property on Canyon View Drive." Allison blanched. "How did you know where?" "Public property records, ma'am. Part of our wildlife management protocols. I'd recommend thorough inspection of your shoes and bedding each evening. Their nocturnal hunting patterns make nighttime encounters particularly common." Nathan observed as Allison hurried away, repeatedly checking the ground around her feet. Sarah continued her educational presentation, distributing brochures to concerned tourists. Excellent execution. Nathan checked his watch. By tomorrow morning, Desert Palms Estates would experience mysterious electrical interruptions, and the security system at their residence would suffer an unfortunate malfunction, allowing desert wildlife unrestricted access through the poolside sliding doors. Specifically, several carefully captured but entirely harmless king snakes that resembled the venomous coral snakes common to the region. He activated his secure phone, typing, "Phase 1 successfully initiated." Her response arrived immediately. Target shows optimal psychological response patterns. Vulnerability to environmental threats established. Proceeding with Phase 2 preparations. Thunder rumbled across distant mountains. The monsoon approached, the exact weather system no meteorological service had accurately predicted. Perfect atmospheric conditions for the second phase of their operation. Chapter 4: The Trap. The strategy demonstrated elegant simplicity despite its psychological complexity. Nathan and Sarah rejected crude vengeance, instead implementing a systematic campaign to destabilize the traitorous couple mentally. Sarah, employing her performance abilities, portrayed an authoritative wildlife expert who embedded the fear of desert predators in Allison's consciousness. Meanwhile, Nathan orchestrated a series of calculated misfortunes, from home security failures to unexplained nocturnal disturbances. Day after day, they methodically constructed their strategy, gradually manipulating their targets toward psychological collapse. Now, witnessing the progression of their campaign, Nathan recognized their approach was exceeding projected effectiveness. Fear resembles desert quicksand, beginning as minor instability underfoot before expanding until it completely consumes its victim. Nathan understood this principle from direct experience. He'd witnessed fear devour hardened operators in combat zones. But currently, observing his former wife deteriorating into a perpetually anxious shadow of her former confidence, he experienced peculiar professional satisfaction. She requested another home inspection. Sarah discarded her ranger persona with practiced ease. In her casual attire, she appeared entirely different. No observer would connect this composed young woman with the intimidating wildlife expert from the resort. Third comprehensive sweep this week. Results: increasingly productive. She settled beside him on the terrace of their rental property. You know what's fascinating about wildlife management consultations? People unconsciously reveal their deepest vulnerabilities. One simply needs to listen attentively. Nathan nodded. What information emerged? Complete psychological profile. Sarah smiled, that distinctive expression that still impressed him with its calculating precision. Her infidelities during your deployments. How she and Calvin planned the financial restructuring if something permanent occurred during your operations. How she interpreted your combat injuries as fortuitous timing, believed the universe had facilitated her extraction strategy. He maintained disciplined composure despite internal rage. Calculated opportunist. Precisely. But here's the compelling development. She genuinely believes their property harbors dangerous wildlife, particularly after discovering that king snake in their master bedroom. Ah yes, the snake introduction. That had been masterfully executed, capturing several harmless specimens and arranging their strategic placement while the security system experienced technical difficulties. Particularly effective when Calvin, that self-absorbed coward, abandoned Allison in the bedroom, barricading himself in the guest bathroom during the subsequent extraction by animal control services. How's our financial predator responding? Sarah's expression conveyed calculated amusement. Following the unfortunate scorpion discovery in his golf bag at Scottsdale National and the mysterious mechanical failures affecting his new Range Rover, let's acknowledge their relationship is experiencing significant operational degradation. The scorpion placement was psychologically aggressive. Merely a desert bark scorpion, completely harmless despite its intimidating appearance. Besides, his hysterical reaction before the entire clubhouse membership provided optimal environmental conditioning. She shrugged. Incidentally, Calvin has commenced excessive alcohol consumption, particularly after discovering significant unauthorized withdrawals from their trading accounts, which you facilitated. Perhaps I provided Marcus with evidence suggesting suspicious transaction patterns, indicating potential money laundering activities. Nathan acknowledged her tactical brilliance with silent appreciation. Sometimes her complete operational immersion concerned him. She appeared to genuinely inhabit dual identities: the compassionate, dedicated therapist and the methodical psychological warfare specialist. Allison inquired about you, she mentioned unexpectedly. Not explicitly you, about her husband, described experiencing nightmares. you lying motionless in the hospital, then suddenly regaining consciousness and observing her. Your response: that military operators often maintain consciousness beyond clinical measures, that her husband, that you possessed exceptional psychological resilience, that your presence would continue manifesting until appropriate resolution occurred. She retrieved a digital recorder from her equipment bag. Interested in the audio documentation, I recorded the complete consultation. A button activation, and Allison's strained voice filled their secure location. I never intended this level of complication, truly didn't, but Nathan, he was always so demanding, so inflexible, and Calvin, he presented financial opportunities I'd never considered. I assumed if something happened during deployment, God, I'm despicable, aren't I? Utterly despicable. Nathan listened, experiencing something cold and calculating expanding within his tactical assessment. Well, she'd anticipated something happening during his deployment. He would certainly accommodate that expectation. She's approaching optimal psychological condition. Sarah deactivated the recording. Within approximately 72 hours, we can implement the primary psychological operation. I've secured an ideal location, abandoned ranger station on the outskirts of the Sonoran Preserve, reportedly used for wildlife observation. You anticipate her compliance. She's already psychologically primed, particularly after discovering your military identification tags in her vehicle's glove compartment. The surveillance photographs provided additional conditioning. Yes, the photographs, their final images together, taken before his Afghanistan deployment. Someone had strategically placed them throughout their Scottsdale residence, with Nathan's face systematically obscured or damaged in each image. Allison had required sedatives after discovering the third instance. She's reached optimal psychological susceptibility, Sarah straightened, stretching professionally. Remaining requirements include: her secure communication device interrupted, displaying an encrypted contact. Yes, she immediately adopted the authoritative ranger persona. Ah, Mrs. Richardson. What? Immediate response. Understood, proceed to the location. You confirm the coordinates. She terminated the connection, turning toward Nathan. Target has self-initiated extraction, proceeding directly into the prepared engagement zone. Precipitating factors. She discovered Calvin transferring remaining liquid assets to offshore accounts. Confrontation ensued. Subsequently, Sarah's expression conveyed professional satisfaction. She believes she observed you outside their bedroom window, watching her. Nathan rose. Operational preparations required. Affirmative, she was already accessing their equipment cache. Implementing primary psychological operation. Critical reminder, she turned, something calculating reflecting in her eyes. You comprehend that following this phase, operational reversal becomes impossible. Commitment becomes absolute. He approached, establishing direct contact with her shoulders. You're experiencing operational hesitation. Negative, she established closer tactical positioning. I've concluded that our operational integration, that these circumstances, predetermined, balanced consequence. I experienced comparable betrayal, recall, perhaps explaining our effective operational partnership. Outside, the monsoon storm intensified. Notably, meteorological forecasts had failed to predict precipitation probability. Irrelevant to mission parameters. Negative, optimal environmental conditions for psychological operations implementation. For Allison's initial encounter with the husband she believed permanently incapacitated. You anticipated my operational failure in combat, didn't you, Allison? Well, careful consideration of expectations remains advisable. Sometimes they materialize in tactically unanticipated configurations. Chapter 5: The Operation. After experiencing 7 consecutive days of inexplicable occurrences, environmental threats, and disturbing coincidences, Allison had reached optimal psychological vulnerability. Each unexplained sound in their desert estate registered as potential wildlife infiltration. Every shadow beyond windows suggested surveillance. Calvin, surrendering to alcoholic refuge and escalating paranoia, no longer provided security or stability. Her single remaining option was consulting the authoritative wildlife management specialist, who seemed to possess disturbing insight into her circumstances. Now Allison approached an isolated ranger station on the Sonoran Preserve perimeter, experiencing intensifying anxiety and premonition of imminent threat. Environmental conditions have deteriorated rapidly, Mrs. Richardson. The ranger's authoritative voice emerged from the observation deck. I anticipated your arrival. Desert wildlife behavioral patterns indicated this probability. Sarah suppressed her tactical satisfaction beneath her operational disguise. For 5 days, she and Nathan had prepared this facility for their primary psychological operation. Environmental simulation equipment concealed within ventilation systems, audio projection technology embedded within structural elements, specialized electrical configurations for unexplainable power disruptions, and crucially, the optical system within the observation area where their psychological operation would reach culmination. Please enter, she gestured with practiced authority. However, maintain awareness. What you'll witness tonight represents documented biological reality. Desert ecosystems operate according to established patterns, regardless of human discomfort with natural processes. Allison crossed the threshold, and aged floorboards protested audibly. The facility contained specialized environmental scents, something foreboding, ancient, reminiscent of undisturbed predator territories. Concentrated extracts from grandfather's wilderness formulations, Sarah noted with professional appreciation. Environmental conditioning begins with olfactory stimulation. This direction, she directed Allison into the observation room, where specialized equipment awaited beneath protective coverings. Remain seated regardless of observed wildlife behavior. Sudden movements trigger predatory responses. I brought compensation. Allison's hands trembled while retrieving an envelope. Financial considerations. Sarah produced professional disapproval. You believe wildlife management responds to monetary incentives. Perhaps this explains your residential vulnerability, fundamental misunderstanding of natural systems. The scorpions are everywhere. Allison's composure visibly deteriorated. The snakes keep appearing despite professional removal services. Even Calvin believes something unusual is occurring. Perhaps something is. The wildlife specialist leaned closer, her expression suggesting specialized knowledge. Desert ecosystems maintain balance through complex mechanisms. When natural order experiences disruption, consequences inevitably materialize. Allison's respiratory rate increased. What precisely are you suggesting? Direct observation will provide clarity. Sarah activated specialized lighting, and environmental simulation equipment initiated chemical dispersal. Nathan's military expertise with atmospheric delivery systems proving operational valuable. Desert wildlife demonstrates fascinating vengeance patterns when territories face invasion. She commenced systematic scanning equipment activation, projecting specialized environmental sounds. Precisely calculated audio frequencies producing subconscious anxiety responses. The atmospheric conditions intensified, creating visual distortion effects. Certain indigenous cultures believe desert spirits protect those who respect natural environments. Sarah's vocal characteristics deepened, adopting ceremonial qualities, while punishing those who demonstrate disrespect or betrayal of natural order. The sophisticated lighting system initiated programmed sequence, strategic illumination fluctuations, precisely timed according to Nathan's military precision. What's happening? Allison attempted evacuation, but Sarah maintained professional control. Critical observation phase initiated, she commanded. Movement now will attract immediate predatory response. Something materialized within the observation window, a shadowy presence gradually solidifying. The specialized projection system performing optimally. Allison observed with escalating psychological distress. There, through specialized optical equipment, appeared Nathan, wearing his full military operational uniform from his final Afghanistan deployment. However, his physical appearance displayed environmental adaptations, skin texture resembling weathered leather from extended desert exposure, eyes demonstrating nocturnal adaptation characteristic of desert predator species. "Dear God," Allison whispered, "dear God. You disrupted natural order." The voice through concealed audio systems resembled Nathan's, but incorporated environmental elements suggesting desert adaptation. "Abandoned your territory responsibilities, extracted resources without reciprocity." "No, I never intended ecological damage." Allison's psychological defenses collapsed completely. "I didn't understand. I simply—" "Silence," the voice commanded, and specialized vibration equipment activated beneath the facility. Environmental projections intensified, atmospheric chemical concentrations increased. "You believed territorial violations wouldn't trigger natural consequences. Believed extraction without reciprocity would continue indefinitely." Nathan emerged gradually through specialized concealment, actually utilizing camouflaged approach vectors from his operational position. But within controlled environmental conditions, the effect achieved optimal psychological impact. "What's happening?" Allison attempted retreat, encountering Sarah's professional containment. "How are you here? Reports confirmed permanent incapacitation." "I've adapted to desert conditions." Nathan's voice maintained predatory characteristics. "Become part of the natural ecosystem, and natural systems maintain balance through reciprocity. What was extracted must be returned." Allison experienced visible physiological distress, increased respiration, pupil dilation, stress-induced perspiration. "What specifically do you require?" "Desert ecosystems demand balance restoration." Sarah integrated specialized wilderness terminology. "For territorial violation correction, equivalent sacrifice becomes necessary. When resources are extracted from natural systems, replacement through comparable resources becomes mandatory." "I don't understand." "Then direct observation will create clarity." Nathan extended arms toward her. "Immediate immersion in natural consequences." "No," she collapsed into psychological submission. "I accept responsibility. I'll provide necessary resources, whatever ecological restoration requires." Operational objective achieved. Sarah maintained professional demeanor despite tactical satisfaction. "You've acknowledged extraction responsibility," she addressed Nathan. "Prepared to accept natural consequences." "Affirmative." He gradually reduced predatory presentation. "Environmental balance acknowledgement registered. Restoration requirements initiated." The specialized environmental systems deactivated sequentially. Within sudden environmental normalization, Allison confronted her husband, alive, functional, standing directly before her. "Impossible," she whispered. "Reports confirmed, permanent neurological damage, irreversible condition." "Environmental adaptation, Allison." Nathan's expression displayed controlled intensity. "Desert ecosystems eliminate weakness, strengthen survivors, exactly as intended." The final observation before her psychological collapse, her husband embracing the wildlife specialist, who systematically removed her operational disguise, revealing her authentic identity. "Ecological systems indeed maintain balance," thought Sarah, observing Allison's compromised condition. through sometimes unexpected adaptive mechanisms. Chapter 6. Balancing Accounts. Desert Horizon Psychiatric Treatment Facility occupied premium Scottsdale real estate, surrounded by manicured cactus gardens and native landscape architecture. Contemporary Southwestern design, professional staff, exclusive amenities, everything projected affluent recovery environments. But Nathan recognized the fundamental reality. Beneath architectural aesthetics existed the same institutional structure found in military psychiatric facilities. They simply integrated improved aesthetic elements, appropriate for establishments serving affluent clientele. Mrs. Blackwood's condition demonstrates stability. The clinical director, Dr. Harmon, reviewed comprehensive documentation. However, her persistent delusions regarding karmic retribution and spiritual possession by desert entities. I must acknowledge, this represents an unusual presentation within my clinical experience. She always demonstrated sensitivity to environmental factors. Nathan provided the practiced narrative with convincing regret, particularly following my combat injuries in Afghanistan, presumably associated guilt manifestations. Indeed, she references these elements consistently. Her betrayal, financial misappropriation. The psychiatrist adjusted specialized eyewear. Confessional ideation appears prominently throughout therapeutic interactions. Predictable response pattern, Nathan assessed, particularly given extensive underlying behavioral evidence. Anticipated treatment timeline. Conservative estimates suggest extended therapeutic intervention, potentially years. Her reality testing capabilities demonstrate significant compromise. She maintains absolute conviction regarding spiritual possession by desert entities demanding karmic balancing. Current self-perception involves being inhabited by vengeful spirits, empty human vessel. Sarah, positioned adjacent to Nathan, displayed appropriate professional concern. In tailored business attire, she presented comprehensive professionalism. No observer would establish connection with the intimidating wildlife specialist who facilitated Allison's psychological decompensation. As designated legal representative, I should establish clarification. She accessed specialized documentation. Considering Mrs. Blackwood's documented condition, appropriate legal competency evaluation seems indicated. Unquestionably, the psychiatrist confirmed. Required evaluation documentation has been completed. Current assessment indicates significant impairment regarding informed decision-making and asset management capabilities. Operational objectives achieved. Nathan permitted controlled satisfaction expression. Current developments ensured all misappropriated financial resources would revert to him as legal spouse of an incapacitated individual. Operational completion confirmed. Their interaction with Allison proved clinically significant. She maintained stationary position beside specialized window treatment, observing desert landscape with dissociated expression. Physically maintained, Desert Horizons prioritized aesthetic presentation, but demonstrating fundamental dissociation, effectively non-operational. "Hello, Allison," Nathan established proximity. She demonstrated minimal response, whispering. Physical manifestation, or spiritual projection. Authentic physical presence. Remember our environmental exchange. You acknowledged resource extraction responsibility. Yes, affirmative. She demonstrated mechanical acknowledgement patterns. I've become vessel for desert spirits, empty human container, while you've adapted, integrated with natural systems. She initiated physical contact with his facial structure, then demonstrated acute startle response. How? Reports confirmed permanent neurological compromise. Medical assessments verified irreversible condition. Initiate calming protocols. Initiate calming protocols. Clinical staff intervened with appropriate pharmaceutical intervention. Mrs. Blackwood requires immediate rest period. Sarah maintained position in adjacent corridor, expression indicating tactical assessment. Operational parameters maintained. He established hand contact. Subject demonstrates complete disassociation from operational reality. And Calvin. Nathan displayed controlled satisfaction. Our financial specialist demonstrated predictable extraction behavior. Upon Allison's institutional placement, he attempted immediate financial liquidation and relocation to non-extradition jurisdiction. However, he displayed encrypted communication on secured device. Marcus has implemented interdiction protocols. Apparently, Mr. Reeves maintains extensive operational history with similar financial extraction methodologies. Multiple previous targets have provided comprehensive testimony. They proceeded toward exterior environment. Desert atmospheric conditions affected Sarah's hair configuration, and within solar illumination, she demonstrated remarkable vitality and aesthetic quality. Challenging to reconcile this individual with calculated psychological operation capabilities. Consider this assessment. She established physical proximity, potential operational excess, subject demonstrating complete psychological disintegration. She established her operational parameters. Nathan maintained operational perspective. When implementing betrayal protocols against combat-deployed spouse, when extracting all accumulated resources, when failing to maintain operational loyalty, Sarah provided quiet completion. Unlike my operational approach, he established direct orientation. You comprehend I would never implement comparable. Confirmed, she displayed authentic emotional response. You maintain different operational parameters, loyalty programming, perhaps excessive commitment characteristics. Desert wildlife produced environmental vocalizations distantly. Atmospheric conditions created thermal variations against landscape features. Standard operational conditions within this ecosystem, with one notable exception. Within specialized therapeutic containment resided an individual maintaining absolute conviction regarding spiritual possession by desert entities. But didn't this represent appropriate consequence distribution? After all, she had independently initiated these operational parameters, establishing precedent for betrayal and resource extraction. And Nathan merely implemented appropriate environmental response protocols. As Sarah's grandfather frequently observed, natural systems inevitably restore balanced conditions. Initiate extraction, Sarah directed toward transportation systems. Return to Virginia. Desert ecosystem exposure has reached optimal duration. Operational headquarters. He evaluated linguistic structure. Significant chronological period since establishing permanent operational base. Permanent base established effective immediately. They initiated departure protocols, leaving behind desert horizons architectural elements and indigenous wildlife. Forward operational theater included Virginia, established relationship parameters, and ceremonial commitment protocols within specialized historical structure near Quantico. And Allison, current placement included secured environmental parameters. With southwestern architectural elements, restricted movement authorization, and medical personnel administering chemical intervention protocols for excessive vocalization regarding desert spiritual manifestations. Natural systems maintain inherent balance, Nathan concluded, observing Sarah's operational efficiency during vehicle navigation, given sufficient operational timeline, occasionally requiring specialized intervention protocols. Strategic environmental manipulation, calculated psychological operations, and one exceptional operational partner capable of transforming accountability into specialized tactical advantage.